that don't understand what they were moving for, because they were moving more on emotion than they were moving on any principled values or reason. So we have to move. We have to use the tools. We have to understand the strategies. And we have to take over down to the, you know what, the water district, the cemetery district, and all of those other offices that you were hearing about earlier as well that are there. And that's what the enemy took over first. They took over all of those little spots and put unprincipled individuals, and when I mean unprincipled, it was by our founding principles of what good governance is all about. And they shifted the whole narrative all the way from that perspective. We've been hearing that about a lot today. Shifting the narrative. What's the messaging? How do we bring that back? You know? There's sometimes I think about it and it's like, well, we have to look real hard at how we're going to really push into this, but no, it is. It is, and we talked about that last night, and you heard it again earlier. It's the message to the heart, and the heart of the people, and people are willing to expose their hearts to you if you go knock on the doors and ask them. They want to engage. We don't have the communication like we used to have. I remember going to the barber shop with my dad. Didn't need a haircut. We just went to the barber shop because that's where all the guys got together and would talk every Saturday morning. Discuss everything from baseball to what was happening in local politics all the way to the national level. Okay, so now we got Starbucks. State of Arizona, you have the opportunity to lead. Your opportunity to lead is phenomenal today, going forward. Pulling together something like what Virginia did. What's the Declaration of Rights? How do you pull it together from the resolutions? I did work in Washington, and in early days, we were putting together, and we had a lot of the state Tea Parties come together, because I was at all the meetings, helped facilitate that. We had one meeting in Ellensburg where we had about 50 Tea Parties show up. We had another meeting at SeaTac where we had 125 people representing various Tea Parties show up. But that dissolved. It was about the egos. It was about the lack of messaging. I don't think Washington has the capacity anymore that they used to have to bring people together, which you noted earlier in your when you were bringing out some of your words and ideas. Things degenerated. You have the opportunity to lead and generate these new ideas, coming together, putting those egos aside, and taking and driving now a message that others can find an example and strength from. Arizona, you have that opportunity. So you have to move forward with the tools, with the messaging, with the heart, and drive forward with it. What's the cost of liberty? I mentioned Starbucks. This is stuff you can get later. You know, but hey, look, how many people get their lattes? All right, so it's cost you about 32 bucks a week. This is national statistics. Oh, okay, Big Macs, all right, average one's about $4.62. If you go out 18.2 meals outside the home on average, that's about 232 bucks a month. You know, if you do something like that, all the way down to various types of beverages. Jeez, that's just, you know, stuff that everybody's doing, you know, other participants in your group are doing. But what we heard earlier, and the representation in different groups, we have anything from, you know, you're blessed here. You have one of the fundamental groups that, and I don't mean by fundamentalist, but I mean one of the fundamental constitution groups on NCCS. You know, Bill's been teaching the classes for years on all of that. Well, here's some of them. I happen to have done a lot of work with the Thomas Jefferson Center. It's time and money. So when you start adding that up, what's it? 11 mochas, you know, 10 Big Macs, 4 meals out, you know, to take that class. 12 hours of your time. Oh, geez, Hillsdale College, that's free. It's only 40 minutes of your time to get educated. Center for Self-Governance, we've heard some great things from them and what we've seen. Geez, that's not bad. 10 mochas, 9 Big Macs, you know, you start looking at that. What's the cost of liberty? What is the cost of liberty to become educated to that level, especially with the things that are going on with the Center of Self-Governance? How do you get in there all the way at the local level to get things accomplished? That's what it's about. You know? This one, tyrants alone, says the great Patel, will treat as seditious those brave and resolute citizens who exhort the people to preserve themselves from oppression in vindication of their rights and privileges. Jeez, what are we hearing today? What have we heard for the last number of years? But you know what? A good prince or a good leader, those that are wanting to spur things forward, you know what? They're going to look at those type of people and say, nope, get out of here. We're done with you. But we're going to come together and we're going to call you patriots. You are the patriots. The patriots in the order of what our founding fathers were expecting the citizenry to be like. You're it. So, we need to stand strong, not only from the educational basis, but folks, it's all about feet on the street. Reaching the hearts of those, our neighbors first. Family, neighbors, members of our churches, changing that narrative and understanding what's happening in the local communities. We have to take that back. And with that, I thank you for your time today, and I appreciate you
being here. Now the next individual I'm going to introduce, really, he needs no introduction. Chris Rossiter. You know, as I said, I've been so impressed with Chris and his dedication. Chris, why aren't you on this list? I know everything about him. You know, it amazes me about Chris. He flies and flies and flies and flies, and he gets home, and he gets in his car, and he drives around the valley to see what he can do to help Tea Parties around the area out with what they need done. If we have a rally in mind in the area, we know that we can call him Chris. He's such a reliable fighter in this fight for liberty. So I'm very proud to call him my friend, and I'm so glad to stand alongside him in this movement. So Chris Rossiter is going to talk to us about strategies. I knew what it was.
Okay, first of all, apologies. I'm not a public speaker. I am what I refer to as the illegal alien of the Tea Party movement. And that's because I do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. And public speaking is one of those for me. So, excuse number 2, I'm going after Kay Carl. So, it's way downhill for you guys. And then excuse number 3, I'll ask for a show of hands. How many of you heard me do this presentation before? Me neither, because I did this. This is the first time I'm doing this one, and I wrote this presentation last night at midnight because I was so busy doing all the rest of the thing. So I'm president of Greater Phoenix Tea Party, and our Tea Party is a little bit different. For some reason, we've always had a unique focus on being very strategic, like clandestine, and we're like the NSA of the Tea Party movement. So. But a couple of years ago, let's see, is there anything else? We flew Tom in especially for this thing because Tom has a unique, I wish he could go for quite a bit more and get into the historical stuff that he really knows, because he, you have these constitutional experts. You've got the people that are, go around and teach all the time, and they're good. They know the Constitution, they know the Declaration. But he understands it all the way from the Magna Carta all the way forward. And he understands the implications and where the source of our liberty is and all the implications of that. So with God's help, we're not going to lose this country on our watch. But the thing is I'm here to kind of introduce the next segment of the Tea Party movement, or the next phase of it. I'm sick of arbitrary approaches. The Tea Party, I'll get to it in my presentation here in a second, the Tea Party is a very nebulous movement. And a lot of that nebulous aspect is because we unconsciously buy into the narrative of the left. We are always fighting the battles of the left's choosing. And most recently, I know Jennifer, they deal with this all the time at TeaParty.net. The media was out there proclaiming the death of the Tea Party like a week ago. And it seems like every 2 months they come out and proclaim the death of the Tea Party movement. And the problem is we accept to an extent that they may have a point to their premise. And we sit there and we look around at each other and we say, we pinch ourselves and say, are we still here? Oh, we're still here. And so instead of spending all that time, acknowledging that we're still here, let's get involved and develop long-term strategies to take this country back and figure that we're, unless God comes back, we're here for the duration. So let's build some long-term strategies and plans, because you're not going to be able to win this war unless you have plans and strategies. You can't do that. So, state of the Tea Party. About 2 years ago, we started kind of asking the question about the Tea Party. What is it? And then we started asking people, like, what are the goals of the Tea Party? So I had a friend who works in SOCOM, and he said that for fun they actually studied the Tea Party movement. And they said that this Tea Party, they would classify as a self-organizing system. And the typical nature of a self-organizing system is it doesn't really last all that long, and the more you try to put it together, the more it falls apart. So, but the Tea Party is comprised of two elements. If you look at like the 9/12, and we've got Darla Daywald's going to be here later today speaking to you. She was actually the architect of, or one of the architects of the 9/12 March on DC. And I'll reveal the other one there. You got a principled element and a populist element. At 9/12 we had, because we had like 1 point something million people out there in DC, you definitely had a populist element to the Tea Party movement. But you also have a principled element, and those are the ones that don't waver, the guys that are in this room. We've been persistent, we're still here, we're not compromised, we're not going away. The populist element kind of ebbs and flows, and they, if it looks like it's going to work out, then they'll stick with you. If not, they go away. Okay, but that's the nature of things. That's the nature of a self-organizing system. Well, we brought Tom in to talk about the pitfalls of restoration. Because if we are successful and restore this country, we're in a quiet time right now. We're in the principled element aspect right now, because we got the fewer. We don't have that populist element. But if we are, I'm sorry. Let me get to why I actually brought Tom in. We tried to place where is the Tea Party in relation to the founding of the country. What year would we be in? And we kind of settled on around the 1760s, because what that was a time where Thomas Jefferson was going around listening to all the conventions, and he concluded, he even wrote, he said, the country's not ready for this revolution, but there will be a time when it is. And so he was going around listening to Patrick Henry and all these other guys. But during that time, they didn't sit idle. They secured things. They started putting things in place that ensured that when the populist element reemerged into the movement and the revolution occurred, that their principles would guide the outcome. And you have two roads that could have gone. One was the American Revolution, the second was the French Revolution. And ours, thanks to the Declaration of Independence and all the work those guys put in, their principles steered that populist element when it reemerged into the conflict. So that's what we need to be doing during this time. We need to make sure that anything that we do going forward is completely in sync with the principles of the Declaration of Independence and everything that led to the Declaration of Independence. Tea Party is a reactionary force. We tend to respond to whatever the left is doing. We get out there. Now, we do have to do that. We have to have elements. That was awesome. We have to have elements, you can tell I'm not a public speaker, that do respond to those conflicts. We have to have people on the field. But a couple years ago, we started withdrawing elements to look at the battlefield from bird's eye view, and not just be at those conflict points with the left and just stay there alone. we're never going to win the battle with these guys if all we do is engage in the arenas that they draw us into. So Nebulous, we already talked about that. The Tea Party tends to engage too late in things. When an issue pops up and they're threatening to pass amnesty or something like that, that's when we get involved and do that stuff. Now, I don't mean that as an absolute. I mean, there's groups out there, organizations that are always fighting that battle. But as a large force standing up to that, the left is always planning this stuff behind the scenes, getting ready to push these things forward, even when we don't see it going on. So, again, we engage in the battles of the left's choosing. And then, this is the other thing, few specific long-term goals. Tom is notorious, I guess now, for stealing thunder, because he pulled out the communist goals. And Matthew's going to talk a little about communist goals, so I'm like doubling down on him. Anyway, we started looking at the left. How did the left achieve what they achieved, and what were their goals, what did they do? So of course we settled on the communist goals, because that was them putting into words what they wanted to do. And they've accomplished almost every one of those goals. Then I started asking the Tea Party people that I was meeting with when we were trying to get this strategic thing rolling. I said, what are the Tea Party's goals? Anybody? Crickets. It's like, take the country back. Oh, okay. How? How are we going to do that? So, if you guys look, we've got, Ted, are you around?
Yeah.
Did anybody in their program see the 50 goals of the conservative movement? If you don't have it, just hold up your hand and Ted will get one out to you. But we actually are proposing 50 goals of the conservative movement, not the Tea Party movement. But so we'll get to those in a sec. Actually, I'm not really even going to go over those specifically. I'm going to let you guys chew on them. The other thing is, we are reluctant to acknowledge what we're up against. You can look at America as a culture, and if you say that their president doesn't like the country and is acting against it, you've got a large element of the country that refuses to believe that. Well, the Tea Party is the same way. We don't want to fully accept what we're up against. We don't want to look at that big monster and see everything that we are facing, but we have to. This is the age-old battle, good versus evil, God versus the devil, whatever you want to say. And we're reluctant to accept all that, so this is the other tendency of that, is you remain hopeful rather than looking up at the Leviathan. You just say, well, I hope someday, if we vote, if we do this or that or the other thing, it's going to turn around. It's not going to this time, and I'll show you why. And then this is something that we've got now, is we've got the federal branches conspiring. Remember, we're supposed to have separation of powers. Well, now they're all working together in conjunction, and they're drawing the states into that as well by putting the states on welfare, giving them federal dollars for things. And they're also getting big business involved in this as well. So somehow we have to break up that collusion. This is a simple thing. This is all the left is about. There are no communists at the top. All these guys are thieves. They just want to steal capital and power. And how are they doing it? Dependency. Everything they do is to promote dependency. You've got, debt is one of the big dependencies. You've got kids going to college doing student loans, and they come out of college with no job and $100,000 in debt. You've got Obamacare. That's designed to put people into debt because it's designed to have these people end up with no coverage. And, through the bureau, they'll blame it on the bureaucracy, but whatever, they get the bill at the end of the day, and they're in debt forever. So this is designed to enslave the American people in dependency. And of course, you got welfare and all these other perpetual things that go on. And what did the left call that? Or when did they formally declare war on us?
1913.
The 64, right? Was it 64? The war on poverty. They fully came out and said it. That's what we're doing. So, communist goals, I think it's communist goal number 15. Another one of those reluctant things. We want to give credit to the leadership of the Republican Party, and I'm talking about the Boehner types and those other guys, that they're just ignorant, you know, and they're just bumbling fools, and they have no spine and all this other stuff. No, a lot of them are in on this. Because if you look at this goal, let's take over one or both political parties. And whether they appeal to somebody's creed or somebody is actually a progressive, that's what they're doing. And Lenin said, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. That's what they're doing. So this was a revelation. I sat down with the leader of one of the biggest conservative organizations in the country, and I wanted to pick his brain on the strategy. I wanted to know, do you guys have like some secret plan we don't know about? And do you guys see the big picture, whatever? With that guy, I sat down and went through that whole spiel about how we covered the communist goals, and then we asked what the Tea Party goals are and other stuff. And he said to me, well, you know, the Contract for America, they've got some goals. So he pulled it up and we looked at those goals. There were 10 goals on there, and all 10 of those goals had the same thing in common. They were all political goals. 26 out of the 45 goals of the communist movement are social. What do they always tell us? You can't touch social issues. You've got to stay in a political arena. You'll get creamed. 70% of the American people, and abortion is just like one small aspect of the social arena, 70% of the American people are opposed to abortion. How can that be a losing issue for us? It's a losing issue because the left makes it, they scare us into silence and do all those other things. So, anyway, so we've got to stop looking at the propaganda and all that other stuff. But we also have to get beyond just the political realm. They have got us in this little trough, and they just keep you, say, oh, you can't get outside that deal. Unless we compete, because they use, let's see, the vast majority of the political gains by the left are driven by their social activism, and they keep us off the playing field in the trough. Where was I going with that, the social thing? Oh, that's how they drive the voting. The voting mentality is by the changes they make in the social deal. So unless we address that, that's why you've got those 50 goals. Those 50 goals are almost all antithetical to the communist goals, because that's a starting point for us. Those are just proposed goals, but we need a starting point, and we need to establish something, a mechanism to make those come true. So, the pendulum notion. Remember this, you know, oh, it goes left, it goes right, you know, eventually the right will. No, that was a hypnotist watch. It was not a pendulum occurring. Seriously. Because what they were doing with that is they were waiting. They were biding their time because you had some court decisions in the early 60s that destroyed the education system. And so they figured after 2 to 3 generations of kids being exposed to this progressive agenda, they're going to be ignorant of their birthright. And then you've got illegal aliens, legal immigration. Bring in a people that's non-indigenous, that's not a traditional type of immigrant who came here for hard work, opportunity, and all those other things, who thinks this is a land of free things, has no connection to the founding principles, and then that waters it down anymore. I think there's another slide that talks about that, sorry. Like I said, I did this at midnight, so this is the first time I'm going through it. How the left has won. Communist goals, silence opposition and attack individuals, dilute the sovereign population. That's where I was going with this. So the education system, dependent class, illegal immigration, and eliminate right to self-defense instincts. This is what they're doing right now, big time in the schools. Kids make a finger with their gun, expulsion, all those kind of things like that. That is purposeful to take away the American instinct to defend yourself, the right to defend your So, conservative goals. Restore the country? Yeah, okay. How? So I passed those out to y'all. Just take those home and mull them over. We're not going to go over those. But it's a starting point. We've got to start thinking short, medium, long-term goals. We can't just be sitting here thinking reaction and somehow all of a sudden the country's going to be restored. We also have to start thinking local, state, national, and international with our activism. And go on offense, okay? So, in order to go on offense, what we're doing, and this is kind of a tease, good at doing that with our events and stuff like that. But conservative strategies, a new direction for the Tea Party. You guys know who that is right there. Can you see him? It's Ike. I caught some flack for not, well, I don't even want to say, but do you think if Eisenhower had the internet available to him, that he would have planned D-Day on it? No. Well, there's an expectation in the Tea Party that you have to do all your planning out in the open. We've got to get away from that. And you as individual Tea Parties have got to start thinking very strategically and planning. You know, you have to stay engaged in the process that you're in, but you also have to think of starting to fulfill those other goals that we're trying to propose here and how you're going to do it. And don't telegraph that to the left. Does the left telegraph what they're going to do to you? No. That gets us to Washington's roles. Washington was the indispensable man. Never let the enemy know your strength. He kept the army in the field for 6 years so that the British would not know the strength of that army. And he said that there were times they could have wiped us off the face of the earth, but they backed off because they didn't know. And then the other one is, nice, never do what the enemy wants you to do. That's why we got to stop just fighting the battles of the left's choosing. We got to do our own thing. What is our case? This is important because, again, we talked about the pitfalls of the outcome, that unless our principles are put into place consistent with the Declaration of Independence, that we could go off the French Revolution cliff. And a lot of that mentality is people out there talking about secession or revolution. Is that our case? Somebody said it earlier, one of the speakers, I can't remember who it was, but they said the Constitution's still there. And so is the Declaration. We have an advantage over the Founding Fathers because the Declaration and the Constitution, they're not being followed. So we have a case of lawlessness. But our case is for assertion. We have to assert the law of the land and develop mechanisms and strategies in order to get that enforced. And that's going to be the tough part. The challenge is against lawlessness, and it takes us right back to Lex Rex. Now, Tom knows Lex Rex. He was like the first person I brought the book up to that absolutely knew what it was. And it's like, have you guys heard of the book Lex Rex? No. The title of that book is, oh, hey, Leslie, awesome. In Colorado? Anyway, Lex Rex, yes, thank you. That is the title of that book is where we get the Supremacy Clause from the United States Constitution. It was written by Presbyterian minister Samuel Rutherford in 1644. The book was so controversial it was outlawed for 100 years. And not only was the book outlawed, the sect that he was in, which was the Covenanters, which were the early Presbyterians, they were outlawed in Great Britain for 30 years. It was a challenge. The essence of the book was that it challenged the divine right of kings. It said that the king is not above the law, and that's what the title of the book means. It's so funny to hear scholars debate this title of the book. And it's Lex meaning law, and Rex meaning prince or king sometimes. All it means is that the law comes before the king. That's it. He's not above the law. What do we have going on right now? It's the exact same thing. We're right back to this point, except the advantage we have is that we have the Constitution and Declaration in effect. We need to find a way to enforce it, the mechanism to enforce it. So what we're doing, and this is the T's, and I've been working on this for 2 years now, and been identifying key people that can pull this off. And we're creating what we're calling the War Department of the Conservative Movement. It's to develop a network to take on and dismantle the left. It taps the generals of the conservative movement, and by that I don't mean actual generals. At first I did mean that because I was asking, like, where's Patton, where's this guy, where's that guy? And I talked to some of those generals that are, out leading and stuff like that, and after talking to them I was a little, I don't want to say disappointed, but they were kind of short-sighted in some of their approaches to tackling the problems of the country. And that's because they're military. We're in an ideological war. So we need to find brilliant minds in this room, in the country, that can tackle all these problems and fulfill those goals. And then all this entity does, it's not going to be under the Tea Party, it's a separate organization. But all it does is generate campaigns. So you don't have this deal where you're trying to form all the Tea Parties into one group or merge conservative organizations or anything like that. These guys subscribe to the campaigns and fulfill them. So this War Department takes all those, it maps every progressive encroachment in society, puts it on the, no matter how small, no matter how big, and then it devotes, it looks at, it looks at it from the standpoint of where's the conservative movement on that playing field first? It's the first question you ask. Do we have anybody that's opposing it? Is it somewhere where the left's completely unopposed? Are there organizations out there that exist that are already fighting it? And so we match those guys up if they do exist. If not, we get people involved and try and engage some entrepreneurship and get people to create those entities to tackle those issues. But we've got to start by mapping those things and figuring out, what's our presence. A good example is business. You see, how do you get businesses to get on board for illegal immigration and to do things that are contrary to their business model, things that would be destructive to their deal? How do you get the insurance companies to go for Obamacare? Stuff like that. The left has teams that are devoted to go in and pressure these corporations into, adopting and getting the right mentality with regards to social issues. So then I ask the question, do we have anybody that does that? And that's another cricket question, because we really don't have any kind of PR teams. So we need to get people that are actually out there interfacing with these corporations and moving their policy back to what would be in their best interest, which would be American prosperity. So anyway, and as a board of consultants, it has feedback from all the different conservative organizations out there. And then I'll just leave you with that. It's time for the Tea Party to leave Boston. We got to get on the road to Philadelphia. So that's all I got for you.
Okay, guys, so now we're going to have a really quick break. Let's make it about 7 minutes, just because we're just a little bit behind. And so, yeah, 7 minutes, grab some water, grab some coffee, something, and I'll give you a 2-minute warning. Thanks.
Did he?